Today, we're opening up one of the oldest cold cases in human history, the Bible's very first murder. And trust me, this is way more than just an ancient story about jealousy. We're going to treat it like a crime scene, and we're going to start with the most important question of all. Think about that for a second. The very first human death recorded in the Bible wasn't due to old age, it wasn't an accident, it was murder, a brother killing a brother. So the question that's been haunting people for thousands of years is, why? What could possibly push someone to do that? To figure it out, we've got to go back to the beginning. So, here we are, the first murder. And the whole thing, this entire tragedy, it all hinges on one single moment, a religious offering. An act that was supposed to be about worship somehow becomes the trigger for an act of rage. I mean, look at this timeline. It's just chillingly simple. Two brothers bring their gifts. God accepts one, but not the other. And that single act of rejection lights a fire in Cain, a rage so intense that his next move is to kill his own brother. It's clear, right? The motive is all tangled up in those offerings. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of our investigation. If we want to understand the motive, we have to look at the evidence. And the prime pieces of evidence are the two offerings themselves. What was so different about them? So on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward. Cain's a farmer, so he brings some of his crops. Abel's a shepherd, so he brings the best of his flock, the firstborn lambs, and specifically their fat, which was considered, the prime cut. But the text says God had respect for Abel's offering and not for Cain's. Why, though? What was the deal breaker? And that, right there, is the central debate. This is what theologians have been arguing about for centuries. Was the problem with the actual thing Cain brought, the fruit instead of an animal, or was the problem with Cain himself? His attitude, his heart, the intention behind the gift. Let's unpack both sides. Now, to really get one of the main theories, we need to add a word to our vocabulary, pietory. A pietory sacrifice isn't just a, hey, thanks for everything kind of gift to God. It's an offering that basically says, I messed up, I'm sorry, and I need to make things right. It's all about atonement for sin. Theologian B.B. Warfield had a really compelling idea about this, and this quote just nails it. He argued that it didn't really matter what the physical gifts were. What mattered was the intent. Cain, he says, showed up thinking of his gift as just paying respect, like simple homage. But Abel came with a heart that understood he was a sinner and needed forgiveness. His sacrifice was peculiar. So here are the two big theories, side by side. You've got Warfield, who says it's 100% about attitude. But then you have another scholar, John Murray, who kind of says, well, hold on, it's both. Murray argues that, yeah, attitude was key, but Abel's sacrifice was also more excellent because it was the right kind of gift. Maybe one God had already told them to bring. The truth is, we don't know for sure, but the debate itself shows you just how deep this story goes. But wait, because before the murder actually happens, there's this incredibly crucial moment. Cain is seething, he's furious, and God himself intervenes. He gives Cain this powerful and kind of cryptic warning about what sin really is. God says to Cain, if you do not do well, sin lies at the door. This is a huge moment. Cain is literally at a crossroads. But what on earth does that mean, sin lies at the door? Well, the answer to that actually comes down to how you translate a single ancient Hebrew word, amar. So get this. The Hebrew word here can mean sin, but it can also be translated as sin offering, a sacrifice for sin. And that leads to two completely different ways of reading God's warning. The first is, frankly, terrifying. Sin is like a predator, a wild animal, crouching right outside your door, waiting for the right moment to pounce and control you. The second reading is a message of hope, a way out, a sin offering is available to you. It's right there at the door if you'll just take it. Now, while that second interpretation is pretty fascinating, most scholars agree that the context really points to the first one. This idea of sin as a crouching animal that wants to master us. That's the understanding that has resonated, and it's generally seen as the primary interpretation. So, if we break it down, God's warning is really like a four-step intervention. First, he tells Cain, you have a choice here. Second, he gives him that vivid image. Sin is a predator and it's ready to pounce. Third, he clarifies its motive. Its desire is to master you. And finally, he gives Cain his mission. You must rule over it. But tragically, he doesn't. So after the murder, the story isn't even close to being over. We get this intense confrontation, a heavy curse, and then something completely unexpected, a twist of mercy. Man, the dialogue here is just electric. God asks, "Where is your brother?" He's giving Cain one last chance to come clean. But Cain doubles down with the lie and that infamous defiant question, "Am I my brother's keeper?" But it's too late. God already knows. The crime is so heinous that Abel's blood is literally crying out from the ground.
And the punishment Cain receives? Wow. This chart shows it perfectly. It's not a new curse. It's Adam's curse, but amplified. It's Adam's curse on steroids. So while Adam was cursed to struggle to get food from the ground, for Cain, the ground will give him nothing. He's totally cut off, sentenced to be a fugitive and a wanderer for the rest of his life.
And Cain gets it. He immediately understands what this means. With no home, no community, he's a sitting duck. He's terrified of blood revenge, that someone will find him and kill him to avenge Abel. You can just feel his absolute despair. But this is where the story takes a hard left turn. You'd expect more punishment, right? Instead, God offers protection. He puts a mark on Cain. Now, we got to be clear here, because this is a huge misunderstanding. The mark of Cain isn't a badge of shame. It's the exact opposite. It was a sign of divine protection, a warning to everyone else, do not touch this man. And that warning had some serious teeth. God promises that if anyone dares to kill Cain, vengeance will come down on them sevenfold. In the Bible, the number 7 signifies completion, perfection. So this is a promise of complete, total, overwhelming divine payback. It's designed to stop the cycle of revenge before it can even start. And that leaves us with this incredible paradox. The world's first murderer is cursed to wander the earth, but he's also marked for divine protection. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Was that mark the final, cruel part of his punishment, forcing him to live with his guilt? Or was it an unbelievable, unearned act of mercy?